The whispered rule, the galaxy was full of rules. Every empire, every species, every council had their own laws. Some rules were written on stone, others carried in blood. But there was one rule, whispered across stars, that no one dared to break. Humans are untouchable. It was said in hushed tones in the markets of Jur, in the bars of Kelna, and in the war camps of the Karkan tribes. No matter how brave, no matter how foolish, no warrior crossed that line. A young alien warrior named Ralvek had grown up hearing this warning. He was from the Dranthia, proud race that loved honor and courage. From the time he could walk, he was told that a warrior must never show fear. And yet, in every story he heard, even the strongest warriors spoke with fear when they mentioned humans. To Ralvek, this made no sense. He had seen pictures of humans soft-skinned, fragile, small compared to the armored giants of the galaxy. How could such a simple-looking race be untouchable? How could even the boldest captains lower their eyes at the thought of them? One night, in a crowded marketplace, Ralvek listened as two old traders whispered about the rule. A fleet vanished when they crossed into human space. One said, his voice shaking, "Vanished, destroyed." The other asked, "Not destroyed," the trader replied, "Erased. No signals, no wreckage, nothing. As if they were never born." Ralvek felt a spark of doubt. Stories always grew bigger with time. He thought maybe this was just fear feeding fear. But still, every time the rule was spoken, every time the words "humans are untouchable" echoed, he saw eyes grow wide and voices grow quiet. The more he heard, the more he wanted to know, was it truth? Or was it only a myth, a shadow created to keep warriors away from human borders? Ralvek's friends often mocked him. "You think too much," they said. "If the galaxy says humans are dangerous, then they are. That's the end of it." But Ralvek was restless. Deep inside, he felt that true courage meant facing what others feared. If humans truly were so dangerous, then shouldn't a warrior test that danger? If they were weak, then shouldn't the galaxy know the truth? The whispers kept haunting him. One evening, in the training hall, he stood among other young fighters. His blade was sharp, his armor polished. An elder was telling the recruits about forbidden zones of the galaxy. He spoke of black holes, cursed worlds, and then his voice dropped low, and the human line, the elder said, "Beyond their borders, no one survives. The rule is simple: never cross into their space. Never provoke them. They are untouchable." Ralvek clenched his fists. Why should an entire galaxy bend to fear? Why should a single race hold such power? That night, alone in his quarters, he looked at a star map. The human territories glowed faintly in red. Their borders were not large compared to other empires, but the mark of danger was written on every chart. His heart beat faster as he stared at the red glow. He thought of the countless stories he had heard, fleets disappearing, wars ending in silence. Even the Karkan warlords who feared nothing refused to step into human space again. Ralvek whispered to himself, "I will find out. I will know the truth." The decision burned inside him. It was more than curiosity. It was pride. He could not live in a galaxy ruled by fear of shadows. He needed to see it with his own eyes. The next day, in the marketplace, he heard more whispers. A drunken miner spoke too loudly, telling a tale of how one ship saw a human warship and turned back immediately. "They didn't even fight," the miner said, laughing nervously. "They saw a single human vessel and ran." The others at the table did not laugh. Their silence was louder than the miner's voice. Ralvek felt the pull of destiny. This was the hook he could not escape. That night, under the cold stars, he stood on the launch deck of his small ship. His crew was young and loyal, but they were nervous. They had heard of his plan. "Captain," one said, "are you sure? Humans are untouchable." Ralvek's eyes blazed with pride. Untouchable. Nothing in this galaxy is untouchable. Not black holes, not death, not even humans. We will see the truth. The crew exchanged fearful looks, but none dared argue. The engines roared to life, and the ship lifted from the deck, cutting through the night sky. Ralvek stared ahead at the endless stars. Somewhere beyond them lay the human border. Somewhere beyond them lay the whispered rule. The galaxy's greatest secret was waiting, and he was ready to break it. Asterisk. The first encounter. The stars stretched like endless fireflies as Ralvek's ship crossed deeper into the unknown. For many days, nothing unusual happened. His crew worked in silence, checking instruments, scanning for signals, but their eyes always showed fear. They knew what border they were approaching. Ralvek, however, felt a mix of excitement and doubt. The galaxy had filled his ears with stories of humans, but all he saw was empty space. No patrols, no warnings, no danger. Perhaps it is all lies, he thought. Perhaps humans are nothing more than fragile beings hiding behind myths. One evening, as the ship glided through the quiet, a faint signal echoed on the scanners. It was not a distress call, not a beacon, just a low, steady pulse. His science officer stared at the screen. "Captain, it's a human signal," she whispered. The crew froze. No one moved. For them, this was the moment every child of the galaxy feared. But Ralvek's eyes lit with determination. "Follow it," he ordered. The ship adjusted course. Stars shifted, and soon a world appeared in the distant small, blue and alive. It was a human colony world. Cities glowed faintly across its surface like veins of light. Ralvek stood tall, staring at the planet. "Look at them," he said to his crew. "They are not gods. They live on worlds, just as we do. They bleed, just as we bleed." But his words did not erase the fear in the room. The helmsman's hands shook as he spoke. "Captain, if they detect us, then we will see the truth," Ralvek interrupted. For a long moment, nothing happened. His ship drifted closer, scanning the atmosphere. The silence felt heavier than war drums. Every second stretched into eternity. Then, suddenly, a blip appeared on the radar. One ship, small, alone, moving toward them with steady speed. Ralvek's crew gasped. "Only one?" he asked, surprised. The blip grew closer until, on the main screen, a human vessel appeared. It was not massive, not covered in spikes or glowing cannons. It looked simple, efficient, almost plain, but it moved with calm confidence, like a predator that knew it did not need to show its teeth. The bridge of Ralvek's ship fell into silence. Message flashed on the comms screen. "Just for words. Leave now. Last warning." The words were simple. They carried no threats, no shouting, no arrogance. Yet they cut through the crew like a blade. Every officer looked at Ralvek, waiting for his answer. Ralvek felt his pride burning. How could one small ship threaten him so calmly? Did they think he would just turn back like a coward? "Open a channel," he ordered. His voice echoed in the silent bridge as the comms officer obeyed. A moment later, the screen flickered, and the face of a human captain appeared. She was calm, her uniform simple, her eyes steady. There was no anger, no fear, only certainty. "You are in human space," she said. "Turn back now." Ralvek laughed bitterly. "This is your great warning. A single ship against mine. The galaxy trembles at you, and yet you stand here alone." The human captain tilted her head slightly, almost as if studying him. "You misunderstand. One ship is enough." Her words were quiet, but they struck with the force of thunder. Ralvek clenched his fists. His crew shifted nervously. Some whispered, begging him to leave. But his pride was a wall too high to climb. "Show me why the galaxy fears you," he challenged. For a brief second, silence filled the air. Then the human captain gave a small nod. "Very well," she said. Ralvek braced himself for an attack, but nothing came. Instead, the human ship moved forward with slow, graceful precision. On his control panels, lights began to flicker. Systems shut down, one by one, shields, weapons, engines, until his ship floated powerless in space. Not a single shot had been fired. Ralvek stared in disbelief. His crew panicked, shouting, trying to restart systems, but nothing responded. It was as if the human vessel had reached inside their ship and silenced it. With a touch, the human captain's voice returned, calm, steady. "Absolute, you are still alive, because we allow it. Go back. Never cross this line again." The comms cut off. The human ship drifted back, still watching, like a lion watching a trespasser leave its den. Ralvek felt his pride shatter. All his training, his courage, his doubts all reduced to silence in a single moment. He had come seeking truth, and the truth was clear. Humans were untouchable, not because of their size, not because of their numbers, but because of a power so great that they did not even need to fight. They only needed to warn. Ralvek sank into his chair, his voice hollow. So, the whispers were true. His crew stared at him, pale with fear. None dared speak. The legend had become real before their eyes. Outside, the stars burned quietly. The human ship remained in the distance, silent, patient, untouchable. Ralvek's pride had led him here. But now, for the first time in his life, he understood fear, and the rule of the galaxy echoed louder than ever. No warrior dares to break the human line. The line crossed Sidrovek, sat in silence long after the human ship had disabled his vessel. The words of the human captain echoed in his head. "You are still alive because we allow it." The crew worked desperately to restart systems, but nothing answered. The ship was frozen, powerless in space, like prey caught in a hunter's grip. Finally, after what felt like hours, the lights flickered back on. Engines hummed weakly, shields returned. The human ship had released them. The bridge filled with relieved sighs, but no one celebrated. Fear still hung in the air. Ralvek gripped the arm of his chair. His pride screamed at him. The human ship had humiliated him without firing a shot. He could not accept that. His people believed honor was won by strength, by refusing to back down. And here he was, alive only because a human had allowed it. "Captain," his first officer whispered, "we must leave." The humans showed mercy. "We should not test it again." Ralvek's eyes burned with defiance. "No, mercy is weakness. If they wanted us gone, they would have destroyed us. Perhaps their power is not as limitless as they claim." The crew exchanged frightened glances, but Ralvek stood tall, his voice steady. "Set course deeper into human space," he ordered. The helmsman hesitated. Captain, do it, Ralvek barked. The ship turned, crossing the invisible border once more. The crew's hearts pounded. They knew the legends. No one dared break the human line twice. At first, nothing happened. The human ship stayed behind, watching but not moving. The stars seemed calm, silent. Ralvek smirked. See, they only pretend to be powerful. Their threats are hollow. But as his words left his mouth, new signals appeared on the radar. 1, then 2, then 5, then dozens. Human ships. Small, sleek, and deadly, dropping out of hyperspace with precise formation. Within moments, the stars around them were filled with human vessels. The crew gasped in horror. Ralvek froze. So many, every screen lit up with targeting locks. His ship was surrounded, trapped like an insect in a web. A single message flashed again across the comms. Last chance. Leave or be erased. The human ships did not fire. They did not need to. Their silence was heavier than thunder. Ralvek's pride twisted inside him. He could turn back now, admit defeat, and live with shame forever. Or he could defy them and prove that a Dranthi warrior never bows. He rose from his chair, ready weapons. The crew erupted in panic. Captain, no, we will die. Better to die with honor than crawl away in fear, Ralvek shouted. Weapons powered up weakly, shields flared. His ship aimed at the nearest human vessel, but before he could fire, everything ended. The human fleet moved as one, beams of light, silent and precise, sliced across his ship. Not explosions, just control. In less than 3 seconds, every weapon melted, every engine froze, every shield collapsed. The ship was dead again. But this time, the humans did not stop there. One by one, the lights across Ralvek's ship flickered out. Life support shut down. The crew gasped as air thinned, as cold seeped into the room. Ralvek stumbled, his pride turning to fear. He had wanted proof of the legends. Now he had it. Humans did not just protect their line. They enforced it with absolute power. Just before darkness consumed them, the systems sparked back to life. Air returned, lights glowed. The crew collapsed, in relief, trembling. On the screen, the same human captain appeared once more. Her face was calm, but her eyes were steel. This is your final warning, she said. Humans are not prey. We do not seek war. But if you cross the line again, you will not return. Ralvek stared at her, speechless. His throat felt dry. His pride had been crushed, not by destruction, but by the mercy of a power so great. It did not even need to kill. The human captain gave a single order: leave. The screen went black. For a long moment, silence filled the bridge. The crew sat frozen, pale with terror. None dared move until Ralvek finally lowered his head. His voice was hollow, set course back. We are done here. The ship turned slowly, crawling out of human space. Behind them, the human fleet did not chase. They simply watched, silent and untouchable, until the trespassers were gone. Ralvek sank into his chair. His pride was shattered, but deep inside, he understood something more powerful than fear. Humans were not untouchable because of weapons alone. They were untouchable because they carried a rule across the galaxy. Rule enforced not by threats, but by certainty. Ralvek whispered the words to himself. Humans are untouchable. The crew heard him, and none disagreed. For the first time in his life, Ralvek knew he had crossed a line that no warrior should ever cross, and he knew he would never dare again. The Punishmentalvik's ship limped back toward neutral space. The crew sat in silence, too shaken to speak. Their eyes carried a single truth. Humans were not a myth. They were real. They were untouchable. But for Rolvek, silence was poison. His pride would not let him rest. Every fiber of his warrior spirit screamed that turning back meant dishonor. To be defeated without even a real battle was worse than death. He paced the bridge, his fists clenched. His crew avoided his gaze, hoping he would not speak what they already feared. But soon his voice broke the silence. "We were humiliated," he growled. "Our ship was crippled, our honor stripped. And yet they did not kill us. Why?" No one answered. Rolvek slammed his hand against the console. "Because they want us to spread their legend. They want us to be their messengers of fear. They think mercy will break us. But they are wrong. I will not be their story. I will not return home as a beaten dog." His first officer spoke softly, almost pleading. "Captain, we are lucky to be alive. You saw what they did. With one ship, then with many. No one can fight such power." Rolvek's eyes burned with defiance. "No one, until now. I will prove them wrong." Against every protest, he gave his order. "Turn back, we will strike again." The crew trembled, but none dared refuse him. Slowly, the ship turned once more toward human space. As they crossed the line a third time, alarms immediately. This time, there was no delay. The human fleet was already waiting. Dozens of ships, positioned with precision, blocking every path. Rolvek lifted his chin. "They think they can frighten me with numbers. They will learn a Dranthi warrior bows to no one." He ordered weapons online. His ship fired its first barrage beams of energy, cutting across the void. The shots struck a human vessel dead on, but instead of explosion, the beams dissolved against a shimmering field of light. Vanishing as if they had never existed, the human ship did not even flinch. A moment later, a reply came. Not with words only, with silence and action. The human fleet moved. It was not battle, it was precision. Their ships darted with impossible speed, surrounding Rolvek's vessel in a cage of light. Beams pierced his shields, melted his weapons, disabled his engines. Every system went dark in seconds. Rolvek's crew screamed as the ship shook violently. Consoles sparked. Flames burst in corners of the bridge. The oxygen dropped again, and the cold of space crept in. Then came the voice, calm, cold, final. "You were warned." The human captain's face appeared on the screen once more. This time, there was no mercy in our eyes. "You sought war. You chose defiance. Now you will understand punishment." Her hand moved slightly, and Rolvek's ship was seized by invisible force. It was pulled forward like a toy caught in a giant's hand. On the main screen, the view shifted. A massive shadow grew larger and larger until it filled the stars. It was not a ship. It was something greater. A human dreadnought, the size of a small moon. Its surface glowed with rivers of light, weapons that seemed more like pieces of a star than machines. Its presence alone crushed the hearts of every soul on board. The dreadnought spoke with its very existence. "This is power beyond your imagination." Rolvek's crew broke. Officers fell to their knees, some weeping, others whispering prayers. They no longer looked to their captain for hope, only for survival. The human captain's voice echoed again. "You will live, but you will not forget. Your ship will carry our mark, Every eye that sees it will know what happens to those who cross the human line. Rolvek tried to speak, but his voice cracked. Why not destroy us? The human captain's gaze did not soften. Because destruction ends stories. Fear grows when survivors speak. You will tell them what you saw. You will carry our warning. Rolvek felt a shiver, colder than death itself. To be spared was not mercy, was worse. It was shame, eternal, suddenly. Beams of light burned symbols across his ship's hull. Glowing marks carved deep, unerasable, like scars branded into flesh. Alien letters twisted with human script, carrying one message that every species could read, untouchable. Rolvek watched in horror as his proud vessel, once a symbol of Dranthi courage, became a flying warning. His people would see the mark. Other empires would see it. The galaxy would know he had defied humans and failed. The human captain's final words cut deeper than any blade. Leave, never return. His ship was released, drifting like a broken toy. The human fleet turned away, fading into the stars. The dreadnought disappeared into the void, its light swallowed by silence. On Rolvek's bridge, no one spoke. The crew stared at the glowing marks burned into their hull. They knew their fate. They would return home, not as warriors, but as the greatest warning in the galaxy. Rolvek sank into his chair, hollow and broken. For the first time, he understood the truth. The humans did not need to destroy those who crossed the line. Their punishment was worse than death. They made you live with the shame. The untouchable Rolvek's ship drifted in silence, engines weak and hull scarred by the glowing marks of shame. No one on the bridge spoke. The crew kept their eyes down, too broken to meet one another's gaze. Each one knew what the symbols on their vessel meant. They were no longer warriors. They were warnings. Days passed as they crawled back toward Dranthi space. The stars outside looked colder than before, as if the universe itself was watching and judging them. Rolvek barely moved from his chair. His once proud shoulders were bent, his voice quiet. The weight of what he had done pressed heavier than chains. When at last they entered Dranthi territory, patrol ships appeared and guided them home. But the moment the patrols saw the glowing human mark burned into the hull, their voices went silent. No questions, no challenges, just silence. The shame was louder than words. As the ship docked, crowds gathered. Families, officers, and elders came to see the returning warriors. They expected glory or, at least, battle scars. But when they saw the glowing mark that spread across the vessel like fire, gasps filled the air. Some whispered, others turned. Away in fear, Rolvek walked down the ramp, his armor dull, his steps heavy. He could hear the whispers all around him. The humans let them live. They were marked. The legends are true. The elders of the Dranthi Council waited for him in the great hall. Their faces were grim. They had seen the mark even before he entered. The leader, an old warrior named Saren, stepped forward. Soren said, his voice heavy, "You crossed the human line." Rolvek bowed his head. "Yes, you ignored warnings," another elder said. "You defied their mercy not once, but thrice, and yet you stand here alive." Why? Rolvek's throat tightened. He looked up, his eyes filled with something his people had never seen in him before. "Fear, because they chose to let me live," he whispered. "Not out of weakness, but out of strength." The hall went silent. Even the elders leaned closer, waiting for his words. Rolvek's voice cracked. As he continued, "Their power is beyond weapons, beyond fleets. They can end us without firing a single shot, but they did not destroy us. Instead, they marked us. They made us a message. And now every eye in this galaxy will see their warning carved into our hull. The elders exchanged uneasy glances. One of them finally spoke. And what is the warning? Rolvek closed his eyes, the memory of the human captain's words echoing in his mind. He spoke softly, but every soul in the hall heard. Humans are untouchable. No warrior dares break their line. The words spread like fire. From the council hall to the streets, from the Dranthi homeworld to the outer colonies, the story of Rolvek's punishment carried through whispers, then shouts, then records. Traders carried it to alien markets. Spies spread it to rival empires. Soon, the entire galaxy knew. The mark on Rolvek's ship became legend. Wherever it traveled, silence followed. Other races looked at it and remembered the rule. No one dared challenge it again. But for Rolvek, there was no pride left. He had wanted to prove courage. Instead, he became the living proof of human power. His name would not be remembered as a hero, but as a warning. Late at night, alone in his quarters, he stared at the stars. His voice trembled as he spoke to himself. I thought courage was never bowing to fear, but now I see. True courage is knowing when you stand before something greater than yourself. And humans are greater than us all. On the edges of the galaxy, alien rulers listened to the story. War fleets that once considered testing humanity's borders turned away. Even the fiercest species, the Karkan warlords, spoke with respect when the word human was whispered. The galaxy did not just fear humans now, it respected them. The rule became law, unspoken yet absolute, never crossed the human line, and so the legend lived on. Not because of battles won, not because of worlds conquered, but because of one simple truth that every warrior understood. Deep in their bones, humans were untouchable. Rolvek, broken but alive, carried that truth with him until his last breath. His shame was eternal, but so was the story. And through his failure, the galaxy learned the one rule that would never be broken again. No warrior dared to test humanity, and no one ever would.